Ancient travelers to these lands were often made beguiled. They believed that silk grew directly on trees, draped like dell across the foliage.
In the dawn of history, along the banks of ancient rivers, a single tree would change the world forever.
Imagine wearing something so valuable that in another age it could buy a house. Not gold, not jewels. A piece of cloth. For thousands of years, silk wasn't just fabric. It was power woven into thread. Kings wrapped themselves in it. Emperors guarded its secrets with ruthless determination. Merchants crossed deserts where a single mistake meant death, all for the chance to carry a few shimmering rolls across continents. Entire cities grew rich because of it. Entire civilizations fought to control it.
Ready the lines! Advance!
And perhaps the strangest part of all? For nearly 2,000 years, much of the world had no idea where silk actually came from. People guessed it grew on magical trees.
Ancient travelers to these lands were often made beguiled. They believed that silk grew directly on trees, draped like dell across the foliage.
Others believed it was combed from the fleece of mysterious animals hidden deep beyond the eastern horizon. Roman writers debated its origins, while Persian traders smiled, said very little, and happily accepted mountains of silver in exchange for another shipment. The greatest manufacturing secret in human history wasn't hidden inside a fortress or locked inside a royal treasury. It was hidden inside a tiny white cocoon. That secret would remain protected for centuries. Breaking it was punishable by death. Yet despite every effort to keep it contained, silk escaped. And when it did, it reshaped global trade, connected civilizations that had never met, spread religions, inspired inventions, and helped create the first truly international economy. This isn't just the story of a luxurious fabric. It's the story of how a single thread stitched together the ancient world. Long before caravans crossed endless deserts, before merchants carried precious cargo over snow-covered mountain passes, before Roman senators argued over extravagant clothing, there was a quiet valley in ancient China where one unexpected moment changed history forever. Like many of history's greatest stories, it begins with a legend. According to Chinese tradition, nearly 5,000 years ago, a young empress named Leizu was sitting beneath a mulberry tree, enjoying a cup of hot tea. The air was calm. Leaves rustled gently overhead. Nothing about the afternoon suggested that history was about to take a remarkable turn. Then something small fell into her cup. A pale cocoon. As the hot water softened its outer layers, Leizu noticed delicate strands beginning to loosen. Curious, she pulled at one end. The thread kept coming and coming. Instead of breaking apart, It unwound into an astonishingly long, shimmering filament unlike anything she had ever seen. It was light enough to float in the breeze, yet surprisingly strong. Under the sunlight, it glowed with a soft radiance that no wool, hemp, or linen could match. Whether this moment actually happened is impossible to know. Most historians consider it a legend rather than documented history. Yet legends often preserve a grain of truth, and archaeological discoveries suggest that silk production began in China thousands of years before written records became common. Ancient silk fragments discovered in tombs along the Yellow River date back more than 4,000 years. Some researchers believe the practice may be even older. Stone tools used for weaving, remnants of primitive looms, and traces of silk fibers hint that early Chinese communities had already mastered techniques that would astonish the ancient world. What's truly extraordinary isn't simply that they discovered silk. It's how they discovered how to make it. Silk doesn't come from plants. It doesn't come from sheep. It comes from one of nature's most unlikely craftsmen, the silkworm. More specifically, the domesticated silkworm known today as Bombyx mori. Its life begins with a tiny egg barely visible to the human eye. After hatching, the larva has only one goal:
To keep eating. For weeks, it devours mulberry leaves almost continuously. Day after day, its appetite transforms it from a fragile hatchling into a plump caterpillar many thousands of times heavier than when it emerged. Then everything changes. Driven by instinct perfected over millions of years, the silkworm begins producing an extraordinary protein from specialized glands inside its body. Slowly, methodically, it moves its head in graceful figure-8 patterns. Hour after hour, without stopping, a single continuous filament begins wrapping around its body, layer after delicate layer. Eventually, the caterpillar disappears inside a protective cocoon made from one astonishingly long strand. One cocoon, one thread, sometimes stretching well over a kilometer before it ends. Nature had already created one of the finest fibers on Earth. Humanity simply learned how to use it. But harvesting silk required a difficult decision. If the moth inside the cocoon completed its transformation and chewed its way out, the precious filament would snap into thousands of tiny pieces. That made it nearly impossible to weave into smooth cloth. Ancient silk makers discovered a solution that sounds heartbreaking by modern standards but revolutionized textile production. Before the moth emerged, the cocoons were carefully heated or steamed. The insect never escaped. Its thread remained perfectly intact. Workers could then locate the loose end, gently unwind the filament, and combine several strands together into a single workable thread. Even today, the process requires remarkable patience. The threads are finer than human hair. A slight mistake can break them instantly. Creating enough silk for a single luxurious robe demanded thousands upon thousands of cocoons. Imagine the labor. Fields of mulberry trees stretching across the landscape. Families tending delicate insects every single day.
Place them gently, like this.
Are they always this hungry?
Workers feeding leaves by hand. Others carefully sorting cocoons. Expert reelers patiently unwinding microscopic threads. Skilled weavers spending weeks. months transforming fragile strands into shimmering cloth. Silk wasn't expensive because people wanted it. It was expensive because almost every centimeter represented countless hours of human effort. The fabric became a masterpiece of biology, craftsmanship, and patience. Ancient Chinese rulers quickly understood what they possessed. This wasn't merely beautiful clothing. It was an economic weapon. During the Shang and Zhou dynasties, silk became woven into nearly every aspect of elite society. Royal families wore elaborately embroidered garments that reflected status and authority. Nobles exchanged silk as diplomatic gifts. Priests incorporated it into sacred ceremonies. Warriors received silk banners that fluttered above armies like symbols of heavenly approval. Soon, silk became something even more remarkable: money. Long before paper currency existed, bolts of silk functioned as a standardized form of wealth.
10 bolts of silk for the grain tax. It is received and recorded.
Officials could receive salaries in silk. Taxes could be paid in silk. Rewards for military service often came in silk.
For your valor, silk to honor your deeds.
Important agreements were sealed with gifts of silk instead of coins. In many ways, silk became one of humanity's earliest luxury currencies. Yet the Chinese Empire understood something that few civilizations managed to protect for long. Knowledge can be more valuable than treasure. Producing silk required far more than possessing silkworms. Farmers had to cultivate healthy mulberry groves. Eggs needed precise care. Temperature and humidity determined survival. Weaving techniques demanded years of practice. Dyeing required specialized skills. Every stage depended on generations of accumulated experience.
Gently feed the fibers.
Now, steady with the beater.
Submerge it fully.
Guide the threads.
Losing that knowledge would mean losing an empire's greatest competitive advantage. So the government acted with extraordinary determination. Silkworm eggs could not leave the country.
Examine the silks and spices with care. The sealed trays are untouched, as ordered.
Live insects could not leave the country. The methods of silk production became closely guarded state secrets. According to later historical accounts, anyone caught attempting to smuggle silkworms beyond China's borders risked severe punishment, sometimes even execution. For centuries the monopoly held. Neighboring kingdoms admired silk.
The patterns are exquisite.
They coveted it. They traded fortunes to obtain it. But none could reproduce it.
Your silver for this fine bolt. Agreed. It's worth the wait. And your gold ornaments, madam?
That monopoly transformed China into the world's only source of genuine silk, creating demand unlike anything the ancient economy had seen before. At first, silk traveled only short distances. Neighboring communities exchanged.
For your jade, 3 bolts of silk. And 2 bronze vessels for the horse. Agreed. The grain completes it. A fair trade.
If for jade, bronze, horses, and grain. But curiosity spread faster than caravans.
We crossed the river at dawn. The current was fierce. Were there any signs of trouble ahead?
And the mountains, are they as grand as they say?
Travelers carried stories westward. They described a miraculous cloth lighter than feathers. Cool during scorching summers. Warm during bitter winters. Soft beyond imagination. It shimmered differently every time sunlight touched it. The stories sounded almost impossible.
Silk from the distant east, lighter than air, smoother than water.
Truly?
Indeed, a treasure worth the peril.
Which only made people want it more. As kingdoms expanded across Asia, trade routes slowly stretched farther from the Chinese heartland. Merchants carried small quantities through mountain valleys, across grasslands and along winding river systems. Each exchange added another link to an invisible chain connecting distant cultures. Few people realized they were witnessing the birth of something much larger than commerce. They were laying the foundations for the first network that would eventually connect East and West. But those early journeys were anything but easy. Between China and the civilizations of Central Asia stood some of the harshest landscapes on Earth. Towering mountain ranges where freezing winds could kill travelers overnight. Deserts so vast that entire caravans vanished without leaving a trace. Bandits who waited patiently along narrow passes, knowing merchants often carried fortunes on the backs of their camels. Every successful journey required courage bordering on madness. Yet despite the dangers, the rewards kept growing. Each mile west multiplied silk's value. A bolt that seemed expensive inside China became priceless thousands of kilometers away. Merchants discovered that people would trade silver, gold, precious stones, horses, spices, perfumes, ivory, and exotic animals just to own a few rolls of this mysterious fabric. Silk had become something far greater than clothing. It had become desire itself. And somewhere beyond those deserts, powerful kingdoms had begun hearing whispers about an unbelievable fabric from the distant east. They had never seen China. They knew almost nothing about the people who made it. But they already wanted what China possessed more than almost anything else. Those whispers were about to ignite one of the greatest trading networks the world had ever known. A web of roads, mountain passes, oasis cities, and sea routes that would carry not only silk, but ideas, religions, inventions, diseases, fortunes, and empires across continents. The ancient world was about to become connected in a way it never had before. And the first thread in that vast tapestry had already been woven.